Alright, we are in the ARCA for Iowa Speedway this week. I think this is week 11, if I'm not mistaken. We are back in the stovetop car. We put down a halfway decent lap. We'll hold up, and we will take you through that lap here in a second. I'm going to show you the setup in the garage we had for this particular part of the race. So 10 to 1 is where the steering ratio starts by default. I bumped it up to 16 to 1. Try to keep from scrubbing too much speed. And being a little finer with the steering into the corner. I had straightened this up. I may straighten it up for the race. For some reason in qualifying, because I think I ran my first 10 lap stint in here with everything on default, just did a lot better with that -2. So I left it here, but I think -12 was about where the steering wheel is straight. Maybe plus or minus about 2 on either side of that. And excuse me. Then we went to on the front brake bias, and I dropped that as low as it would go. That way, when I did minor brake input on this qualifying run, it turned the car just a little bit better. So that's where we started here. The lap that we will show you was part of the qualifying laps that we ran here. These first 2 laps, which will give us our 24.073. Going to the results in this particular session, 23.8 was the fastest, so only 2/10 roughly off of the fastest time in the practice session. And even better, we had my initial setup as I did. We went in and just raced the default setup for about 10 laps, kind of get comfortable with the car. Went back out, I lost control of the car, started back out for a 10 lap stint where we changed the steering ratio, or the steering offset, the ratio from the default, and then put some laps down, I believe in the low line. Cranking these laps off here. I think I put the steering ratio down lower, and then I ran a bunch of laps to kind of see if I could get used to it. Then we did our 10 lap stint with the running the low line with the, I believe at that time was a 16 to 1, probably at the offset as it was -12. And the brake bias for this here, which I was definitely using the brakes, was 3%, but I adjusted in car off the default, which was 65% brake bias. So we dropped it down to 62 for the runs that I did here. So first run running the low line, using the brakes to get me down to the bottom, getting off the corner. Next one I tried to run a mid line. Was not very consistent at hitting the mid line. Basically running in that second between the 2 sets of dashed lines in the corner, and then another stint where we ran the high line, which was trying to run above that last set of dotted lines, just to see what we did. Best tire wear was on the low line with the brake assisting us going to the corner. That's probably what I will plan for my race run, to run that line. It's for the added benefit of better tire wear. We started around some qualifying laps, trying to put something down. We got a 24.1. Ended up on the 3rd lap with a 24.1, which really doesn't help me because I want to get it as realistic as possible. Trying to crack off a 24, below 24 on the 1st or the 2nd lap, where we continued to try some of those. I was going to show the 24. And then that 131, as it was the fastest. I thought there was one for 24113. This is the one I was going to show, but then I decided to go out and try a few more times because I just kept me down here, and then I found this gem running a little bit different. Go through the corners, so we're going to take you through that lap right here in the stovetop car. So we're going to hop in the cockpit here, and I'm going to show you the lap prior to that, how we set that up, and then that last lap. So nothing too different. We're just going to keep it reasonable speed getting in here. We don't really care about this lap, so it doesn't really matter. I think I tried top to bottom just to see if it was going to do any better. Just trying to keep speed. But this is the part that we're going to be concerned with. We're off of turn 4, entering into turn 3, out of turn 4. So we used a little bit of brake to get us down to the bottom. Basically, starting our turn in somewhere outside that red sign with that pillar. Start turning in, and then at the end of that sign, we're off the throttle onto the brakes lightly with that higher brake bias that I showed at the beginning. Trying to get down and get back to the throttle as quick as we can. Looks like we picked it up. We have this green caution light, and we picked it up right about that dark mark on the wall there. Not picking it up all the way. Okay, we're mostly straight. Kind of screwed that up, but we got back to the throttle. We kind of getting too much speed off that corner down there like that. You will loop it around to something fierce. So you be very careful. Then we're gonna make our turn in here. The end of the grandstands has been kind of somewhere between here and that mark. So a little bit after the grandstands, we are turning in just before the end of the grandstands, letting off throttle just after the grandstands, light brake pressure, and trying to get ourselves down here to that yellow line across the bottom. We're starting to pick the throttle back up as looks like we get to that cone somewhere between that wall and that cone. The spot of the car here. Just a little bit, just trying to get back into it. Trying to get right down there on that line. As we're close to this Iowa turn 2 sign, we start picking it up a little bit more and trying to get to a point where we can just hammer that back off a bit. This corner is a little bit better. Didn't spin out here quite as often, but if you get too much steering input and too much throttle, you'll loop her around real easy. You can see the steering offset was definitely, the wheel's not straight like I usually like it. And as we make our turn in here, we are starting to make our turn in on that green sign, and looks like right at the end of that US Cellular sign, we are off the throttle on the brakes, continuing our turn in, carrying a higher line this time, midline coming off turns 4. We are picking the throttle back up. Looks like just after this camper in the field, in the outfield there, just after the caution light here. So just after that, we start picking it back up. About half, 3/4 throttle. Not all the way, kind of sliding there, drifting her up by the wall here. And not getting back full throttle until we're mostly straight. Otherwise, that dangerous territory, as said before, just looping the car around. And as we get across the line. Those are 24.073. 2/10 of a second. So, look like just kind of recap. I didn't get a very good off of turns 3 and out of turn 4 to start my lap that was fastest. And again, we're up by the wall, letting off, driving it down right to that yellow line into turns 1 and 2, coming off that corner, and then taking a slightly higher line in turn 3 and 4 to keep the momentum up as we pass through turns 3 into turns 4 and off, carry enough speed to come off there to put ourselves in about a 24.0, just shy of just under a 24.1. But so far, just in practice, it is really easy to lose it coming off turn 4. So be very careful how you choose to enter and exit that turn. Because if you end up turning in too early, getting down on the bottom, and end up doing what I did multiple times, which was getting back to the throttle, obviously sooner than I should have, you would be carrying too much speed as you come off turn 4 that the rear tires would just break loose and you were just going for a ride. So be very careful how you do that. I would encourage probably a slower run through that. Try not to pick the throttle back up nearly as early as you think you could. Just kind of rolling that corner a little bit more, getting on the throttle but not getting on at full throttle until your car is mostly straight on that straightaway. Turns 1 and 2 is kind of like that. As you come off turn 2, you can do the exact same thing. So if you get down too low too early, instead of staying up high and kind of driving it down in there, letting it roll and lose speed to get to the apex of the corner, and giving it some throttle to come off. If you get down there too early, get back to the throttle too soon, you will break traction coming off turn 2, and you will just be going for a ride. So be very careful how you do that. The entrances to the turns, being as consistent as possible with that, it's going to be really pretty important to making sure that you're not losing time, breaking traction, catching a slide off there with no cautions. You really can't afford to make those mistakes. That will not only cause you to lose time to the people in front of you, prevent you from getting as much time as you might have been to get caught back up to somebody and overtake them, but potentially just continue to lose positions to those people behind you just because you're overdriving the corners. As the race goes on, I'm sure my turning point and letting off the throttle will back up to where this mark is here, and the same thing with the other side, those signs on the backstretch. The better you can save your tires and keep from driving it in low and then sliding the car up off the corner, but to drive it in high, drive it down and get to the bottom line, the apex of the turn, and then letting it kind of drift up off of there, you will be doing better than somebody who gets down here on the inside and just slides the tires across there. They're going to start pushing up toward the wall, and they're just burning that right front up as you come off each of those turns. So just be mindful of what that looks like, so that you're not doing that and then causing yourself some issues. Again, the steering ratios, all those numbers, it is 100% personal preference as to how you want the car to handle. 16 to 1 um, was a big change from the default when I took my first 10 laps. It took some getting used to change that. 10 to 1 was alright. Um, just because there's no cautions, I like to run a higher steering ratio to keep myself from turning that tire, to turn the wheel too far, too quickly, and scrubbing the tires and speed um, when I'm going around. So really just to try to give myself better tire wear in hopes that I can get that mid-pack finish, that top 10, by picking a few people off later in the race. Um, it's going to depend on what my car number is as far as the strength of field, as to whether I qualify for the race or not. I've had a few bad bouts with some safety ratings, so would very much like to keep myself as close to the top 10 as I can, and try to stay out of trouble. But I mean, as the car starts to, as that right front starts to wear, you are going to have to back the corners up. I feel like you'll be less likely to be spinning it coming off the corners, because likely you will develop such a push in the corners that you just can't get back to the throttle without plowing the vehicle out toward the outside wall and just bouncing off of it. Um, it's always a pain to get stuck on the wall, so be cognizant to stay away from the wall. There's going to be multiple lines being run here. Just be careful up a little bit higher in the turns 1 and 2. There's a bit of a bump right up here, so if you end up trying to get that midline and end up not making the line and drifting up a little bit higher into that top line, there's a bit of a bump up there, can unsettle the car. So be careful at that spot, as it may cause you some issues as the race goes on. But hopefully part, some small amount of anything inside here, if this is able to help you find that line and squeeze a little bit more speed out of what I was able to do. That is really all I'm hoping for. I'm hoping you take some of these things and either run as close to my best lap time that I ran here to get you a good qualifying spot to start up front, um, and or get yourself a good starting point to totally kick my times behind and go out there and get a really good starting spot and maybe even win the race. So if any part of the video is helpful, please like and or subscribe to my channel. I will try to get at least one of the qualifying videos, if not two of them. I've had to try to back off it a little bit. There's been a lot going on as far as fall and activities outside that need to be done before the snow falls. Just trying to get some stuff done. So B fixed and A fixed have kind of fallen by the wayside. So probably ARCA, C fixed, and then the other two if I get a chance. Um, but again, my lap times tend to be closer to that the lower the series is. As we get to the Cup Series, there's not always a guarantee that my lap time will be reasonably competitive with those who are running in the lobbies entering my strength of field. So if it's not super close, I'm not going to bother with it, or if I don't get time. But ARCA and C fixed, I'd like to keep trying to do. Um, Unfortunately, it does take a bit of time to try to do the ARCA car, do the C fixed, the B fixed, the A fixed, to get enough practice in, because it tends to end up being almost 100 laps of practice to kind of figure out what's going on before I can get a race in and to get it recorded. So hopefully this helps. Hopefully you can do good, and I will release this, post this video up as soon as I find out what how close that lap time was to what my strength of field qualifying looks like for my race. Thanks.